Hi. There I am. Hi. How's everybody? Hi. Welcome to Frankenstein Tea. Let me take a breath. How's everybody? Welcome. I'm Kristen. I'm the director of the Island Free Library here on Block Island. I bring you a daily program of short stories for adult listeners. I call it Frankenstein Tea. I can give you a quick story about that. It was one of the ways that we stayed connected with our patrons during shelter in place this past winter and early spring. And it continues to be a way that we stay connected to our patrons. And in particular, I stay connected to my family and friends through this program. So, during COVID, it's a little reference. Frankenstein is a reference to this monster of a time, monster of a disease, this monster that we live with. And that's sort of what the tea reference is as well. Like we live with this, like we need to sit down and I don't like to say make peace with it because I don't think that's what we're doing, but we do need to navigate it and negotiate it and live with it. So that's a little bit about Frankenstein Tea. There's also references to that, the sense that it's Frankenstein is by copyright laws a permissible read. And but I don't always read something permissible anymore. But copyright laws has to be 100 years old to be recorded and in public domain and all of that. But I see this program rather exposing people to different genres and different authors and different styles and things that maybe are not what they would normally or usually read. And so, this says I'm not connected to you. I think you can hear me, but I'm not sure. So I hate to continue, but I think you can hear me. There you go. Now you can. It's busy. There's a lot going on, and I can't quite tell where I'm connected, but I'm gonna stay right here and hope that you can hear me. Anyway, so that's what Frankenstein Tea is. It's an adult program for adult listeners, and it's usually with me. And we do a little check-in, right? How you doing? How you doing today? So I'm gonna ask you, how are you doing today? How's your day going? Everybody good? Did you eat right? Did you sleep right? Have you rested? If you're not doing those things, are you going to take care of yourself in another way and maybe do those things? Have you connected with someone you love? Do you need to disconnect from social media and news and the TV? Think about those things, a little time to do a self check-in. That says the internet again. I don't have a lot of places to work today. We're sort of a full house here, but I'm going to try to move. Come with me. Let's see if I can maybe move. I don't know where. Let's see. Maybe this room. Maybe this room will just be that much better. I don't know. I don't have a place to sit there. Well, have a little tour of the library with me today. Let's go up. Let's see if I can get connected upstairs. Maybe we can get, oh no, whoa, don't fall up the stairs. No, you know what? I can't get connected upstairs. Maybe right here. Can you see me if I sit right here? Anyway, I'm just going to read my story and hope that you can hear me and see me. Maybe we're connected there. Woo. So I put a YouTube, we went live on Facebook today, Miss Morgan and I, and Susanna and Judy, and you can view that on our Facebook page. We haven't been able to go live on Facebook for a number of months, but we think we figured out a workaround. And so we're on Facebook today with an update, and we posted that to the YouTube channel as well. So check those out. I'm going to have a sip of water. It's not tea today, but it is water. I think I might be connected and okay. Okay, so I'm going to read something that I found in the book sale. We've had a ton of book donations. I think everybody on the planet started cleaning out their bookshelves during COVID. Great project. Not making a comment about that, but that definitely happened. And we have a lot of book donations in the building that we sort of have to quarantine and walk around and live around. And one of the things that I asked for in the update today was like, no more books, please. We need to get a grip on the books that we have. So thank you. We appreciate those books. We love it that you support us and think of us, and we will sell those, and that will help this year during this tight budget season. But for a little bit, we have to say no more. We're full. We're full up. But I scored a couple of good ones, and this is one of them. I think. I don't know. John Hersey. I'm going to read from this today. This is Fling and Other Stories. Published by Random House, Vintage Books, a division of Random House. The first copyright is 1947. This edition is December 1991. I thought this was fun. This is it's inscribed to Judith Jones. That says to Judith Jones. That's Judith Jones happens to be who my son that was his English teacher this past year, but I don't think it's that Judith Jones, but maybe. No, 1947, no, probably not. But maybe. I don't know. Kind of fun. I'm sure there's many Judith Jones in the world, but English teacher, book, it's fun to think about. Anyway, for Frankenstein Tea today on Friday, July 17th at 3:10 p.m., I am reading from Fling by John Hersey, and I'm reading something called The Blouse. After Myra had her baby, she used to take the infant to the post office to get the clerk, Mr. Fleming, to weigh it for her because she had no scales. One day she was in a bad mood. She asked Mr. Fleming, "How much would it cost to mail her to California? Parcel post." Mr. Fleming put the baby on the scales. "Wouldn't you want to send her special handling?" he asked. "Not today, I wouldn't." The baby was blithely kicking its legs and waving its arms, so the needle on the scales must have wobbled. Mr. Fleming, leaning forward to concentrate on it, tightened his lips and pushed his glasses up the ridge of his nose with his little finger. $9.78, he finally said. "Imagine it," she said. "If I had just had a friend out there on the West Coast, I'd be tempted. Today I would." Mr. Fleming handed the baby back across the counter. "Have a good day, Mistress Myra," he said, and nodded to the next in line. Myra tucked the baby into the canvas sling on her chest and stepped out into the bright noon. The air was still. This was one of those August days on the vineyard when the sky is like a huge flat hunk of beach glass, milky and baked hot by the sun. The flowers in the beds in front of the post office drooped from a long drought. The loudspeaker at the ferry parking lot suddenly crackled, and a voice with an impatient edge shouted, "Standby drivers, report to your cars. All the standby drivers, report to your cars immediately." Myra thought, if only I were a traveler, I'd drive like the wind, somewhere. The baby squirmed and kicked in the snug sling as if it were still in Myra's belly. Myra walked across 5 corners through disorderly traffic, certain that no driver would run down a mother carrying an infant. "God," Myra said, appalled at its senseless. She tucked around the baby a jar of peanut butter, a loaf of Wonder Bread, a bag of Doritos, a packet of hot dogs, some dill pickles, a box of spinach spaghetti, a container of whole milk, and a frozen pizza. Waiting her turn at a checkout slot, she picked 2 Milky Ways. She wondered what stupid thing this checkout girl, a new one to her, would say about the baby. They always said, "Look at the little wrinkles on the wrist," Or when the baby had nothing on but diapers, they would lean over and poke a finger in its belly button and sing, ding-a-ling. But this one was having a hard time finding the right numbers to push on the cash register. She was a fat girl with short hair, which was bleached white on the tips and stood up in little spikes. Her lower lip hung loose, weighed down by the density of her confusion. After a while, she shouted, Mrs. Watson! The supervisor came over. She was a friend of Myra's mother, a good-hearted woman, but a terrible gossip. She was thin and walked with both shoulders pushed forward. She said, Good morning, Myra dear. Myra said, I wish it was good. The checkout girl said, I never can remember the subtotal gizmo. Which one? Mrs. Watson gave Myra a look as if to confide, These checkout morons I have to put up with. Myra didn't specially want to be on her side. ST for subtotal, dear, right in front of your nose. Geez, the girl said and punched the button. Why this kind of thing always happened to her. No one else seemed to get stuck in the checkout slots. The baby was impatient too. It had stopped gurgling. In a minute, it would be howling. I can't get over that cat of your mother's, Mrs. Watson said to Myra. The way it sits up there on the TV. Won't look at you. Faces away from you. You know. And then it lashes its tail back and forth across the screen. I said to your mother the other day, well, first of all, I have to tell you, when I drop in on her, she'll flick her little remote gadget, but the sound on mute, but she keeps the picture going. And she keeps looking at it while you're talking with her, as if she's fitting your words onto the pictures. So I was leaving the other day. I said to her, Ethel, dear, I said, do you want me to take the cat down? You know what she says? She barks at me, real mad. Not yet, she says. So I just left. Sometimes I wonder. This was one morning when Myra didn't want to have a conversation about her mother. She just grunted and bagged the things. $26.31, the girl said. It couldn't be, Myra said. Mrs. Watson poked a hand around in Myra's two bags and said, She's right. You'll have to ring it up again. This is not my day, the dumb girl said. Look who's talking, Myra said. She tucked the baby back in the sling. The total turned out to be $16.31. Myra said to the girl, Do they train you to slip in an extra 10 now and then so they'll make more money? Do you get a commission for extra 10s? Why, Myra, Mrs. Watson said, I'm surprised at you. Sometimes I'm surprised at myself, Myra said. You can tell Mom that next time you see her. As she left the store, she felt rotten about the way she'd spoken to the girl and to Mrs. Watson. The girl must be what? A junior in high school? I'm only a couple of years older than her, Myra thought, and I'm no better. I have to be stupider. Look where I've got myself. She walked up toward Main Street. Her legs hurt, going uphill, what with the weight of the baby and the two grocery bags, one under each arm. The baby fell asleep and its head began bouncing against her chest with each step she took. Myra thought that if only she could cry, she'd be better off. But somewhere along the way, she'd lost the use of tears. She crossed Main Street and stopped to look in the window of the thrift shop. A big Japanese kimono was hanging there, and Myra remembered a photograph she had seen once of a Japanese woman deferentially walking along 3 paces behind her husband. She felt a stab of anger. Then she thought, God, I've got to put these packages down. I'll buy myself something to wear. That always makes me feel better. She walked into the shop and around to the glass counter on the left. She was glad to see Samantha burrow at the cash register. Samantha's face was half again as wide as anyone needed. Her eyes were far apart, and her mouth was like a metal letter slot at the post office. But Myra thought her lovely. Some kind of survivor's beauty came out from inside her. She was the daughter of summer people from out on West Chop, heavy drinkers. She was living on the island all year now. She didn't want to be rich. She was a totally natural person, calm and kind and willing to listen. It figured that she would be a volunteer at the thrift shop. Can I park these groceries here for a minute? Myra asked. Only if you let me hold the baby while you look around, Samantha said. You got it, Myra said, and she handed the baby over, waking it up in the process. She put the sling on the counter beside the brown paper bags. Samantha made cooing noises. The baby thrift shop, among all the objects that people hadn't wanted to keep. First, she drifted along by the lengthy display of chinaware and glasses and bits of bric-a-brac. Some people might have said that these amounted to a lot of tacky junk, but Myra felt a sweet harmony in all the abandoned things. At the back of the store, next to the shelves of outgrown toys, there was a disturbing jumble of discards that hadn't yet been sorted and tagged for display, which seemed to have been thrown in a heap in anger. She crossed cautiously, because she only had a few dollars on her, toward the racks of women's clothing. As she went past the rows of dresses and pants, she put out her hand now and then, just to touch. She was drawn toward the blouses. Grasping the hangers, she pressed this blouse and that one back against its neighbors to check it over, and suddenly she felt desperately lonely, sensing the crowd of women on whose shoulders these pieces of clothing had not seemed comfortable or pretty enough. Then she saw a blouse she loved. It was a pale, pale saffron color, simply cut, slightly fitted, with a tricot collar. She had a vague feeling she had seen it on someone and had thought that person beautiful. She took it over and held it up for Samantha to see. Samantha said, Cool, Myra. How about bartering? The blouse in exchange for this lousy bundle, huh? Ooh, she squeezed the baby. You're not far off, Myra said. The blouse cost $4. Myra stuffed it in one of the A&P bags. She felt better till she realized she had to walk all the way up to Greenwood and then over to Franklin to get home. If home was what you call those two miserable little rooms her mother had rented for her at the rear of Mrs. Wickham's house. By the time she got there, her legs and shoulders and arms all felt numb. She went around to the back of the house and pushed the door open with her shoulder. At once she heard her mother's voice, beyond the door, saying, Darling, I wish you'd lock up. On these back streets, you never know, even Vineyard Haven these days. Oh, Mom, thank God you're here. Would you take these things? You wouldn't be in here if I locked up. You'd have to go on home. I know, but I worry, darling, Myra's mother said. She leaned the broom she was holding against a wall and took the bags from Myra, one at a time, setting them on the small table at the center of the room. Myra saw that her mother had been picking up. She had washed the dishes from the night before and from breakfast, and now she'd been sweeping the floor, Myra thought. This is supposed to be my house. Look at her mother said. Isn't sweet? No, she's not sweet. She stinks. Do you want me to change her? Mom, that's so hypocritical. You know changing her makes you nauseous. Myra put the baby on the drain board by the sink, fetched the Pampers from one of the A&P bags, opened the box, and undressed the baby. Unable to watch, her mother went to the window. Myra cleaned the baby's bottom with a rag and warm water from the sink faucet, dried the round places and all the little creases, shook powder on, snapped a new diaper and opened her up and found a huge big cancer in her stomach. I got talking with Mrs. Durkin, the nurse in the waiting room. She said what they took out, it was just like a big bunch of grapes. There wasn't anything to do but sew her up again. I'll miss her so. She isn't dead yet, Mom. The baby, dry and clean, had begun to chirp like a sparrow. Mrs. Darkin said there was no use even giving her a prognosis. Sometimes I think I'd like to be a Christian Scientist. What are you saying? For one thing, I wouldn't have to worry about doctor's bills anymore. I wouldn't have to pay for Blue Cross. And anyways, it's all in the mind, you know. Mother, don't you dare. I hate to say it, but you're getting on. Listen to these stories you keep telling me about all your friends with embolisms and pancreatitis and malignant thises and that's. If you stop Blue Cross and get sick, that'd be one more thing on my back to pay the bills you talked yourself out of. And where would you get the money? And so, Myra thought, Mom has worked her way around to him again. Look at her eyes soften and that hurt look. She loves me so much that she'd like to murder me. Myra tore her eyes away from her mother's face and looked down at the baby. It had its mouth open and its tongue was lolling out and back, and its ravishing dark brown eyes, with little distorted rectangles of window light laid out on them, seemed groggy with contentment. Myra thought angrily, why can't anyone around here feel what I feel? Where would I get the money? She asked with heavy irony. Hey, Mom, that's the best question you ever asked. Oh, honey, he'll be back. You watch. After Labor Day, after all those pretty high-toned off-island waitresses go back to college, he'll come back to you with his tail between his legs and his wallet full of money in his back pocket. Want him back. Miley, you know you do. I do not. I hate him. You tricked me. I tricked you? How? You mean into marrying him? Excuse me, darling, but what is you? How? You mean into marrying him? Excuse me, darling, but what is it that you're holding in your arms? You do have a baby, you know. You got married. It's your fault, baby. It's your fault. You said you'd shoot me before you'd let me get rid of it. Myra, did I fill myself up with beer night after night and crawl in the back seat of his father's Chevrolet with a selfish high school boy? Did I? Let's not talk fault, Myra. And his shitty mother. You would have the baby had begun to whoop with joy. Yip, it said. Its eyes blazed. Yip, it said. Its eyes blazed. Wah! You were always such a good girl, Miley. You were always so decent, so kind, so obedient. What happened? It gives me the shudders to hear you use words like that. Mrs. Thurop is a wonderful woman. Don't say Thurop. I hate that name. It's yours now, dear. There was a silence. Then as mother and daughter both drew back from what they had been saying and thinking, Myra's anger seeped quickly away. She felt as if nothing strong held on in her anymore. She glanced down at the baby and saw that for the first time in its life it was looking deeply into her eyes. My God, she thought, she wants to know if I'm going to do to her someday the way Mom does me. Her mother softly said, Can I make you a cup of tea, honey? Myra said. Why don't you fix us some hot dogs? I just got some new ones in one of those bags. No, darling, I can't stay. I promised Helen I'd be over. I told you about her knee with the fluid in it. I'll set some water on for tea. It's okay, Myra said. It's okay. I can eat later. Her mother left. Myra sat there quite a while. Then she took the baby into the bedroom, where she saw that her mother made the bed. She put the baby down on it and went back to take the groceries out of the bags. As she picked the first bag up to fold it, two $20 bills under it. She put them in the pocket of her jeans. The blouse was on top in the other bag. She held it up to the light by the shoulders and decided to try it on. She went in the bedroom, took off her shirt and her nursing bra, and threw them on the bed beside the baby. She put on the blouse and buttoned it up. She opened the bathroom door, turned on the overhead light, and looked at herself in the mirror over the basin. At once, she realized who it was she'd seen in the blouse and thought so beautiful. Herself. My God, she said out loud, I'm buying stuff from the thrift shop that I sold them. And I thought that girl in the A&P was dumb. She remembered the anger months ago when she knew she was pregnant and had taken the blouse to the shop to get rid of it. Yet now she felt the best she'd felt all day. She was pleased by what she saw in the mirror. It was a neat blouse, and with her figure now, she looked real good. She crossed her arms with her hands on her shoulders. The fabric was so nice and soft. She closed her eyes. She remembered the light touch of his fingers slowly undoing the buttons that first night, beginning at the top, one by one. No hurry, one at a time. God damn it, she shouted, and she left the bathroom and slammed its door. That started the baby crying. In a few moments, it was tuned up to a sustained screaming, holding its breath and turning purple. When the baby was mad, it looked like him. Everyone said it looked like him. Myra picked the baby up and took it in the kitchen. She settled in the rocker facing the window, but rocking did no good. The little body was as hard as wood. The outcry came in gasps. Myra said, just as she had said to her mother, "It's okay." Then, in a kind of daydream, she started undoing the buttons with delicate care. She took her time, one by one, like on those nights. When the buttons were all unbuttoned at last, she folded back the left side of the blouse, and all unbuttoned at last, she folded back the left side of the blouse and gave her breast to her child. The eager mouth took the bud and tugged at it in a rage of need. In a matter of moments, the hard little back eased itself into a curve. The hands came unclenched and brushed the breast with a light touch, and the cheeks faded from purple to a creamy pink. Myra felt a warmth in her chest as the mother milk flowed, and when she looked down at the silky fuzz of an eyebrow and the unbelievable upsweep of lashes that she could just barely see, the warmth spread farther and even to tingle. She raised her eyes to the window and she saw the world. Slivers of dazzling light, slanting from right to left, winked on the leathery leaves of the oaks and were combed by the needles on the pines. Splashes of brilliance washed the trunks. The old pines had bark like alligator hide. She'd never noticed. There was moss on the shady side of the oaks. Then all the radiance out there began to shimmer at the edges, and Myra knew that no words had ever been made up to tell about what she could just see then. Without lowering her eyes, she lifted the right side of the blouse and covered her daughter's legs. That was the blouse. Last sentence one more time. It's the last sentence, and I'm not sure I got it right. Then all the radiance out there began to shimmer at the edges, and Myra knew that no words had ever been made up to tell about what she could see just then. Without lowering her eyes, she lifted the right side of the blouse and covered her daughter's legs. I'm pretty sure I know that to be true. And some interesting references there to island living and, maybe how some people feel living on this island, maybe similar. Interesting. What did I say that was printed? 1940 something? 47? Seems very current to me for 1947. I think it was originally published. Let's see if I can find that. Oh, yeah. So the blouse. I don't know about this. I'm not sure. 1991, this book was published. First copyright is 1947, but the blouse is 1989. Yeah, that seems something in there feels right. 1989. Well, I'm not sure. Well, I hope you enjoyed this afternoon's story. Thanks for coming to Frankenstein Tea. I'll be back at it tomorrow at